Hello everyone, my name is Thomas. This is the SWISSFRAGREEFER channel, and today I like to show you a little bit more about my corals. In my tank I have mostly Montipora, Anacropora and Stylophora corals, but I also got some other corals along the way, and I like to show you all of these corals with all the names and kind of the placements and where I bought them from in this video. So let's get there. Okay, first we start with that little green Stylophora here in the front. I actually bought that coral from Jason Fox. I can also link that web page in the description below. The name was Steve GARETT Stylophora, and even I thought in the beginning it's maybe just a fancy little name that has no real meaning behind. I figured then out that Steve GARETT is actually also a reefer in California, and he sells a lot of crazy corals as well. I don't know why, but that coral definitely didn't grow as much as any of the other Stylophoras I bought, but I still kind of like the color and hope that it grows more in the future. Maybe my favorite Stylophora is all the way there in the back. I'm not sure if we can see it very good from the color. It's I would almost say it's kind of an ocean blue. It's definitely a very bright blue. It's the name is called TYREE Rainbow Stylophora. I made a little bit research and I figured out that coral is from a person which is called Steve TYREE. So it looks like Steve is a very popular name for people who actually grow Stylophora. And his webpage is reeffarmers.com. So I also put that link down below. That's definitely from the coloration my favorite one. Then the next Stylophora is that big, it's kind of bluish purplish here. I got that from Worldwide Corals. That definitely is the biggest Stylophora I have at the moment in my tank. I hope I get the colors good in it. It's always a little bit tricky shooting that blue, but it's definitely a very beautiful blue, and I'm very happy the way it grew. So it's kind of, I definitely already was able to make a couple frags on it because I actually hit it accidentally with my hand one time. So that was some frags I got from there. Then the next Stylophora is the one there all the way in the back. It's a weird kind of little form. It's a very dense. It has very dense tips. It doesn't really is doing that branching or something like this. It's also not a super fast grower, but as long as it stays happy there, it's right in the front of that narrow 3, which constantly gives some good flow on it, and it still looks pretty happy. Then the last Stylophora in the tank is this green one here. Just in comparison to that other green here, so that's definitely the darker green. That one is a little bit a brighter green. And it also has, it's much more branching. So let me go a little bit over to that side. It's much more branching out. And it's from Jason Fox and called Project X Stylophora. I positioned all the Stylophoras more or less in the same depth of the tank, so they all get around the 250 to probably 280 par, and it looks like they are doing great. Okay, now we switch the category of corals and we go to the Anacroporas. So we have a look at that green one down here. I actually have 3 pieces of that. It's a Jason Fox green goblin. It's a very, very fast grower. It actually all originated from that colony I have here on the back, but it got so big and it grew everywhere that it actually, I made 3 pieces out of it. So one is here on the back, and then just the other 2 pieces here in the front. And I'm still not sure if I should keep them or just look if I can sell them off somehow, but it just kind of fills the tank with nice color, and I just definitely love that bright green. I feel like it looks pretty awesome. The next Anacropora we have a look at is probably even one of my favorites, because it almost looks a little bit like an acro, but it's an Anacropora. It's the red one here and here. It's the Jason Fox TNT Anacropora, and I just love the growth pattern. It definitely looks like a very, like I feel like almost the growth pattern is a little bit like these crazy Acroporas are doing. Just it's definitely not as hard to keep. It actually grows very, very good for me. So these 2 big chunks grew actually out of a little frag I bought maybe a year ago, and I also was already able to make a couple frags out of that one. I have them here. So it's definitely a very, very nice growing coral. And to be honest, one I didn't really saw in a lot of like aquarium stores and things like this. But I bought it also off the web page from Jason Fox. Definitely check out his web page. He has always absolutely great corals. The last Anacropora I show is that green here. And when you look at the green goblin and that one, it's definitely also from the polyps itself. It's very similar. That's a big chunk that just fell off. But you pretty quickly see that it has just much, much thicker branches, and it's not as clustered as the green goblin. It's called green slime ball. It's from Worldwide Corals. I also got a tiny little frag from them a while ago, and as you see here, it grows fantastic. It has just kind of that super nice little, when I make here like a shot a little bit from that side, it's just kind of one of my favorite corals in the whole tank here, especially also because it just kind of grows as fast, and because of the nice coloration it gives to the tank. Now we come to the Acroporas. I actually have 3 Acroporas in that tank, and to be honest, I don't remember any of their names anymore. It's that one here, which kind of nicely encrusted on the rock there. Also the polyps come out nicely. So that's number 1. Don't really have a name for it. Then number 2 is that light green there on the tip of the rock. In the beginning I almost thought it's dying because the polyp completely went inside. It didn't really do very good. So instead of just throwing it away, I still left it in there, and now the polyp come actually out again, and it definitely also encrusted there a little bit on the left side on the rock. So I hope that one makes it. Then number 3 is one that's doing actually very well, and it is kind of super hairy, and it's growing very nicely. It's kind of a green with some pink inside. And it's definitely, compared to the other 2, growing much faster. And I'm then just kind of excited to see what kind of what kind of structure it has then when it's kind of fully grown into a colony. So now we finally make our way to the Montiporas. We have a look at that red one there. It's actually a grafted Montipora. It's from Worldwide Corals. You see the grafted part is just there, a little bit green there. Then right next to it, underneath here, it's a Starburst cap Montipora. I also have a little piece that fell off one time and have it over here. And somewhere super hidden, I don't really think we can see it, is over there. So I'm not sure if I would do that again, to just kind of place it everywhere in the tank, because it just grows then everywhere, and it's kind of nicer to have them all together instead of everywhere little chunks in my tank. But that's why I started having a dedicated frag tank, so I can put them to a frag plug and put it actually in there. Both of those corals came from Jason Fox. They're also not super rare, they're actually quite common. And then the green underneath there, this one here, is a Jason Fox green X and ham Montipora cap. I definitely love it because the polyps have a different color. I feel like from the name green X and ham, they should be a little bit pinkish. I don't see a lot of pink, but they're definitely kind of white, so they just give a good little contrast to the green of the coral. Then the next one is very hard to miss. It's the Vivid's blue cap Montipora, and I hope I get here the colors nice. It's kind of that big batch here on the right side of my tank. It's I feel like a beautiful color. We don't really see it here with the filter I have on my iPhone camera, but it's a very nice dark purple. And it's also not something I saw a lot in kind of aquarium stores. It's mostly I see the green or the red cap Montipora, but to have like a big chunk of purple in the tank makes it look definitely very nice. The other big Montipora cap is on that side here. It's they call it WWC SPEARMINT Montipora cap from Worldwide Corals. I got that as a tiny frag, and it grew in that kind of very spectacular form, like in that it forms almost like a rose kind of thing. It's going up nicely. I wish actually the purple one would do the same, but instead the purple one almost kind of flattens itself out over the rock here. And I definitely have to trim that soon, because it here touches almost already the next coral. The next one, we have a look at that green one here, and I definitely have to put that name somewhere in the text, because it's called TYREE AEQUITUBERCULATA cap Montipora. It's actually a coral in the beginning, which when I had my Red Sea Max Nano, I bought it actually. That coral is probably now 1.5 years old, also tiny frag. It completely bleached out. I thought it's going to die. But then I put it into that tank, and it just, I feel like you still see here that little square thing. That's the original size of the frag I got. And now within kind of a year, it kind of took all over, and it actually already grows over my red digitata there. But definitely also very beautiful and gives great color to the tank. Then the next one is a little bit hidden. It's here almost a little bit in the shade. It's a Mystic Sunset, and at the moment the sun definitely set a little bit on him, or the light set a little bit, because it's a little bit in the shade of that rock. above it. I probably have at one point to rearrange something a little bit, but here more in the front where it comes more to the light, it actually turns more again into that nice red. And it has purple polyps on it, so it's kind of red encrusting with purple polyps. Also here we see that's the original frag, and it just kind of grew all over the rock. I still think it's nice for me, but if I would do it again, I would be kind of much more cautious with all these encrusting corals, because in the beginning they cannot grow fast enough for you, but then at one point it just grows all over it, and maybe then not in the way you would like it. Then the next one is the cherry tree Montipora. It's that one here in the front. It's a red, almost orange with green polyps. And also here the original frag is just kind of that little piece here. I also had that in my nano tank, and surprise, it also almost died. It was completely brown, and I thought it's kind of game over, but sometimes I just keep them a little bit around. I put it into that tank with that kind of size. I maybe even have an older picture to see how big the original frag was, and it kind of grows now here all over the place. I also soon have to frag here probably, because it almost touches that other green coral here on the right side, so it's probably just 1 or 2 millimeters away from it, and I'm sure they don't really like each other, so I have to fix that. Also on that side here, it touches already my green SPEARMINT Montipora. But that's it. It's also kind of nice that these things are growing and kind of filling up the tank, so I'm not too mad if stuff actually grows, because in the past oftentimes I didn't have that luxury and actually just always died on me and never really grew then. The next one, I'm actually very excited. It's I don't know if I get a good shot of it. It's kind of a weird coloration. It's almost like a brown orange, and it has, if it has good light, obviously here the green Montipora is now way too big. It cannot really grow. It's a Jason Fox slow burner coral, and I have still a frag of it in my frag tank, so maybe I place it in somewhere else or just kind of try to remove it here to another spot. But it's a beautiful color and coral when it actually gets light. Just unfortunately at the moment it doesn't really get a lot of light. Then the next one is the green coral over here. I bought it as a top STELLATA coral, but just looking at how it's growing and everything, I just think it's a green Montipora digitata, but maybe I'm wrong. It's just kind of, it's definitely heavily encrusting here over the rock, and also branching quite a lot. But when I just look at it next to the red one, to me they look exactly the same, just obviously in green and in red. That coral was actually much more branching, almost like the red one, but then probably the big tang here was kind of hitting it, and so it ended up in my sand bed, so I had to unfortunately make a couple frags out of it. So these are the frags from that coral. But at least I have some good, nice, good-sized frags, but that was actually not the idea. It just kind of, the fish hit it and then it kind of fell down. And speaking of that red Montipora digitata, it's actually called Fire Forest Montipora digitata from Worldwide Corals. Again, I feel like I almost repeat myself, almost died in my other tank. I put it into that tank and then it completely took off, grew all over it, so that I also at one point I feel like I knocked it down with my hand. I put then a little bit And again, it was just a tiny little bit here on that side, which also completely grown now out of proportion. And I had the absolute great idea to also put a little bit up here, which then also encrusted all over the rock and made another big branch. It's kind of competing up there with the Acropora, and where they touch, there's definitely some coral warfare going on there, and it looks like the acro is actually winning and the red digitata is actually kind of grows almost back there, or the acro over it, which I'm actually glad that the acro wins and not the Montipora in that case. The last Montipora coral, if I remember correctly, I have in that tank is this one here. So it's not a bird's nest, even it kind of looks like it, or at least they sold it to me like this. It's a ORA German blue digitata, which is funny because usually everybody thinks I'm German, but I'm actually Swiss. And I didn't knew that there's a coral which is actually called after somebody from Germany. Who knows, maybe somebody from Germany got that out of the sea, and that's why they called it like this. But it grew quite nicely for me. It actually started here. That's the other part of it. I didn't like that it's so close to my Stylophora, so I kind of tried to break it off completely, but that was not very successful. So definitely a little bit still stayed there on the rock, and now that one is growing as well. But I think that's a little bit the general problem with these encrusting corals, that once they grow somewhere, you almost don't bring them, you cannot get rid of them unless you take out the rock and kind of with some tools try to take everything off it. But yeah, I like the coral. It has a green stem and kind of purplish blue tips. Definitely looks cool. And it's quite slow growing. So that's kind of the growth of, I would say, maybe 8 months. And when I would compare that to a bird's nest, probably the bird's nest would almost grow twice as fast as that one. So for the next corals, I didn't really stay true to my motto with that tank, Montipora only. I actually bought that candy cane coral there at the frag swap. But it looked so nice, and it was just kind of one or maybe two heads. And now I didn't really counted it, but there's probably at least 20 heads or something like this, and it just gives a nice coloration. And I hope it just kind of rounds out and gives that nice round look to it. Maybe then also at one point I start fragging that one. Then also, obviously 100% not a Montipora is that mushroom there. It actually split it already, and there's a kind of a second one was growing there in between the rocks. It's actually open now to the back. So if I could have eyes on the back of the tank, I would see it, but obviously now I don't. But it opens up very nicely. It has kind of a blue middle part, and then that kind of orange. Definitely gives a very, very nice touch to the tank. Didn't expect that I can grow a mushroom here, because even on the sand bed with the lights, the way I said it, there's probably 150 pars, but because it's that much in the shade, probably that's why it's doing that good. And let's see if they split more, and then I have these mushrooms all over the place. The next one is that purple tip hammer coral there. I always wanted a hammer, but I was a little bit hesitant because they are usually very expensive, and in the beginning, since every coral I bought died, I didn't really want to waste a lot of money. But since then, this tank did very well. I saw that one for a good price. It has 2 heads. I had to put it in a place where I don't have a lot of current, and as you can imagine from all these, from the 2 reef waves, 45, from the 2 narrow 3s, there's definitely a lot of current going on, so that's why I had to place it there in the middle, that it has just kind of a light flow. And you see it on the polyps, it's just kind of very gentle flow. Probably the most disturbance is almost from the big fish who are swimming by. It's doing good, it doesn't get probably a lot of light. If I would kind of guess, it's probably somewhere in 120, 150 pars, which I know that these corals can take much more, but at the moment it's still happy. And I'm just kind of a little bit afraid to put it somewhere else, and then it has too much flow and creates an issue, so that's why at the moment I leave it there. Then I had another great idea. I saw on the Live Aquaria page a Favia package, Favia and brain corals. It was a package, I feel like, with 8 corals inside, 8 Favias and brain corals, so that one was one of it. And then I feel like that was the second one down here. It's the same type, but that one is actually one of the only corals from that 8 pack who survived. I also put it all the way down. It's underneath here, the purple cap, so it doesn't really get a lot of light. I like it, I like the coloration of it, but it's kind of, compared to the other corals, it's definitely very, very slow growing, which is fine, but that's why it's not that spectacular, because it's still kind of the same size like I bought the frags of it. The other 2 frags I bought in that Live Aquaria frag pack. Definitely also check out their website, they have always great deals, and I know they keep very good care of their products. Is that brain coral here. There's actually a plug underneath, like you almost don't see it now because it kind of grew kind of over the plug. But yeah, I definitely like it. I have to keep it on the sand bed just to not get too much light on it. But it's a beautiful coral, and I probably should feed it more directly with some frozen food or something like this. But sometimes I'm just kind of too lazy always getting down with kind of something to feed it properly. So it just gets kind of the leftovers that's in the water, but it's still growing, it's looking good, so that's why I just keep it that way for now. The other coral from that package was actually a bonus coral. That's why it's also not a Favia or a brain coral. It's a short polyp GONIPORA. I hope I get here a good picture of it. There's also a plug underneath. It kind of grew over the whole plug, so just kind of wonder how it continues to grow. I always wanted to have a GONIPORA which has that nice long tentacles, and then now unfortunately I got one and it's the short polyp version of it. But I still like it. It still has a nice little, in the flow it looks nice how the little tentacles are, get blown around by the current. And there's like that one polyp up there which is kind of almost double the size than the other ones. That's a little bit weird. Yeah, but I definitely keep it in the sand bed. I don't want to put it on a rock because I feel like it would grow all over the rock, and that's also not really something I'm looking for at the moment. Then I almost forgot that coral out of so many corals I have. It's I also got that from Jason Fox. I feel like he calls it BLING CYPHASTREA. It has definitely a purple and pinkish touch to it, and it kind of was also ultra slow growing. Now it finally encrusted there a little bit on the rock, and it starts growing, but just from the pattern and the little branches, it probably takes forever till I can get a frag out of that one. But it's a nice coloration, and let's see how far I can take that one. Then the last one is also a CYPHASTREA. It's just encrusting over the rock here. It's definitely not really branching at all. Maybe I'm even wrong and that's the bling bling one. It just reminds me to keep always, when I buy corals, the tag that I remember then afterwards what kind of names they have. It's completely shaded by the big Monty cap here, by the green one. But it still looks like it's encrusting, and maybe it kind of needs that shade, because I feel like before I had the cap that big and shading it a little bit, it actually didn't really grow at all, and kind of almost kind of looks like it's on the way out, dying here. But now it's kind of encrusting and hopefully growing as well. And I actually just said I have so many corals, but I actually even have more, and I completely forgot about that big branching green slimer there. That is probably also 1 year growth, maybe a little bit more. I didn't do any frags of that one yet, but probably at one point I can then finally do some of them. But I just kind of love it's a very unique pattern how they grow, because they have kind of all these long thick branches and arms. Definitely also one of my favorite corals, because the most upsetting thing sometimes when you grow these tiny little frags is if they stay forever ultra small and you never really see any progress. But that one definitely you see progress, because it's definitely probably 5-6 inches long, the arms. Very nice coral. Green slimer, Anacropora. I also got that one from Worldwide Corals. And then probably really the last coral I just missed is that Montipora SETOSA. Here I also got that one from Jason Fox. I actually have like a big batch here and a little bit there on the back. I don't know if you guys can see that. Because I also tried to put a frag back there, which I wouldn't do anymore. I just kind of like it to have it all in one space, and it definitely, in the beginning it was just encrusting over the rock, but now it kind of definitely starts, as you see here on the right side, to kind of branch out a little bit. Definitely curious how that kind of grows then in the future, and just gives a nice little, next to all the red I have, it's kind of a little bit orange touch, which is very nice for the overall look of the tank. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you had some good insights about the corals I have in my tank. If you're local to the Nashville area, please send me a private message, since I always have some frags ready for sharing. And I see you in the next video. Thank you.